It's Sunday morning, and every decent man and woman is listening to Test Miles with Nick Miles on FM News 101 KXL. Buckle in.
Oh, it's Sunday morning. It's time to talk cars for the next 60 minutes on your weekly automotive radio show. I'm Nick Miles, and you're listening to America's automotive radio show, Test Miles, locally created, nationally celebrated. This morning's team includes misfits, rapscallions, and ne'er-do-wells. Jenya, the intern, is here. Sean Walker and old man Brad. This is the part of the show when we talk about some of the vehicles that we have been test driving over the last week. I have been lucky enough to be in a Subaru Impreza. Haven't had it for very long, but a very good impression very quickly. This is a 5-door hatch, the version that I'm driving. All-wheel drive. Spacious interior for the Impreza. I think it's probably one of the most spacious vehicles in its class. Great handling. I've done some tests, and I've seen lots of tests done on this car where you have slippage of the different wheels and see how well it transfers power to the wheel that is getting the grip, or the wheels that are getting the grip. Now, you have to picture this in your mind. Close your eyes and think about this. You have a rack that has where your four wheels can go. You can drive this car up onto the rack. But on certain ones of the racks, they have rollers. So as you drive the car up, certain wheels aren't getting any traction. They're just spinning. So you give power to that wheel, it just spins. And you can do it on 1, 2, or 3 different wheels, and the car will send all the power to the wheel that needs it and pull it up onto the top of that rack. To take that in real life, you're out at Mount Hood, you're going skiing, you're in the snow-ridden parking lot, 4 wheels on the ground, 3 of them on ice, but it's the 4th wheel that finds the grippage in the snow, which pulls you into that parking space. And of course, that's just mild off-roading. You get into difficult situations, dangerous ice driving, bad road conditions. These cars do really well, and I'm absolutely sure that there are only maybe 2 other all-wheel drive systems that compete with Subaru, really. And that's Jeep for one of them, and number 2 is the super handling all-wheel drive from Acura. The other all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive systems are unlikely that they could compete as well with Subaru. This, of course, has standard symmetrical all-wheel drive. The bad things about this car is its engine's a little small. And the problem is I was completely ruined by the Hellcat. Once you've driven that car, everything else seems ineffective and just non-purposeful.
So how's the Hellcat do in the ice?
Yeah, well, all right. When they make the all-wheel drive version, maybe we could really test that in the ice.
But you can always get an upgrade in this and get the WRX or the STI.
Yeah, but that's not the one I was testing. The Impreza was the base version.
You can't be disappointed with the engine because it's just a base model when there are 2 other options for this car that have more than enough horsepower.
I think that's what I was saying, though. I mean, it doesn't matter how much horsepower is available. You still want more than you ever have. But then, of course, when you have to pay in fuel economy on the other end, you get disappointed there, too. I would say that the CVT transmissions in these vehicles are a little tiresome. I'm getting a little bored of the hairdryer under the seat sound, which this one particularly has. And one of the biggest problems with Subarus has been their interiors. They have made immense improvements in their interiors. They are so much better than when I owned my 2000 Forester when I was on kink. But they still need a little bit of a boost to bring them up to, I think, the standard of their Japanese competitors. 2-liter 4-cylinder, 145 horsepower, 5-speed manual, the CVT. Of course, that symmetrical all-wheel drive. This is the best part of it. The fuel economy, 34 on the highway, getting you 25 miles a gallon in the city. It's 28 combined. That's one of the best parts. What does it compete against? Focus, Elantra GT, Kia Forte, VW Golf, Mazda 3, Mitsubishi Lancer hatch. It comes in 3 different trim levels, and you will pay a starting price of $18,185. I would tell you that I would have no problem owning this car on a daily basis, as a daily driver, as a ski, as a weekend vehicle. It would be perfect for me.
I miss that they don't have the wagons like they used to. I mean, a hatch is still kind of like there, but I miss the actual Impreza wagons. I love those cars.
Well, it wasn't a real wagon, though.
Yeah, but
it was still a hatch. They still have the hatch, but they've changed the shape of it.
It was a little longer than
they don't have the STI hatches anymore, which I think is a missing link. Anyway, Sean, what have you been driving?
I've been driving the Hyundai Santa Fe Limited. 7-row SUV, or 7-passenger, SUV.
7-row. Woo.
Yeah, I know. It's right up Brad's alley for a limo.
As long as Brad's limo, that is.
No, it's a 7-passenger SUV. It was also voted best SUV for third row or for money for U.S. News. There's some great things about this car that I really love. I love the fact that for families, the seats fight odors and stains, so you can spill anything on the seats.
Maybe for your family, Sean.
I don't have a family, so
Your family of
Brad's
dogs.
family.
Dogs, it would work good.
Has a 3.3-liter V6 engine that has 290 horsepower. For a big SUV, this thing handles really nicely. It was surprisingly easy to drive around in tight parking lots, and I loved the fact that it's really luxury inside of it, especially coming from a vehicle beforehand, which was all standard and basic. I felt like I was getting in a high-end
Well, you can't just leave it there. What were you in before this?
Jetta.
Okay.
Bone stock Jetta, and it, I think, has to be one of the worst cars I drove this year alone. I mean, I love the gas in that thing, but it was just
Might
so
be the last
empty.
VW you drive, too.
Unfortunately, that's why I was trying to keep it quiet. You get 17 and 22 in the highway.
This is back to the Santa Fe, right?
Yes, back to the Santa Fe. We're not talking about the TDI anymore.
So 17 on the highway, 17 in the city, 22 on the highway.
A lot of competitors. It goes up against the Durango, Highlander, Pathfinder, Traverse, and Pilot. And I would actually consider this over all of those. I love the interior in it. It felt like a luxury car for the price. You can get in one starting price $30,000, and the one that I was driving was $41,000. So, I mean, It's a great vehicle.
Good. Thumbs up from Sean. Brad?
I had the opportunity to drive the 2016 Acura RDX. This is one with the advanced package, so it was about $44,000. Base price on this is a little under $35,000. Acura, so you talked about the Subaru interiors not being to your liking, but I love the Acura interiors.
Yes,
it's one of the things they do beautifully.
They do have a good job.
And so this particular vehicle is a compact crossover, so it seats 5, a little bit smaller than some of these other bigger ones like Sean had. But it has made some significant changes to the looks that really enhance its appeal for this year.
It's based off the Honda CR-V, isn't it?
Right.
Which is the best-selling SUV in America.
Yeah. So it's got lots of tech. It's got a great V6, 3.5 liter, 279 horsepower engine that generates.
Well, that's a lot of horsepower.
Yeah. It's 19 and 27 on the highway there, and then 22 combined MPG, which is pretty solid.
Its city does a little low. It doesn't do that great in the city on gas mileage, but definitely get it on the freeway. You get some good mileage out of it.
Yeah, and the tough thing for Acura, and we've talked about this before, is that they suffer from some brand identity a little bit. When you compare it to, like, its competition is the BMW X3, Mercedes GLC, the Audi Q5, and then the Volvo XC60. Volvo has its own identity, even though it's not that marquee brand like the Mercedes or the BMW.
Acura's problem where they were trying to be this luxury car that wasn't obviously luxury. And I'm like, if I'm going to pay for a luxury car, I want it to be luxury.
And the problem is the bar has been moved up with Honda. So Honda has moved itself into a better category. So now you're comparing things that are quite similar.
Right. You look at things like the new Honda HR-V, that interior was way above what people were expecting in a car that size.
Yeah. So this car has received a number of awards. Like I think Edmunds gave it the most popular entry luxury SUV. Kelley Blue Book 10 best luxury cars under $35,000. It's a great drive. Really fun to drive in the city, and for a car at that price for what you get, it's a great value.
Acura make great SUVs. Hands down.
I was actually impressed with its driving it. Was it last year at Mudfest and going rally racing or on the off-road course with that? I was impressed with its handling.
It was a mild off-road course, not a rally race course.
Yeah, but it's still the rally course.
Depending on how you drove it, I suppose.
Clearly, we know Mr. Leadfoot over there in the corner had some issues. All right. Thank you, Brad. Thank you, Sean. Those are the cars we've test-driven this week. When Test Miles comes back, we are going to talk about engineering. What goes into making a car? Nuts, bolts, 3D CAD drawings, 3D printers. How does it all work? And what do they do to make cars like the Dodge Durango? We'll be talking to someone from Dodge when we return on Test Miles. I'm Nick Miles.
It's Test Miles on FM News 101. Test Miles, like NASCAR, but with one right turn. TestMiles.com.
Welcome back to Test Miles on FM News 101 KXL Automotive Radio Show, live from our studios in downtown Portland. For the latest automotive news, you can follow us at Twitter on Test Miles.
Hello, Nick. Here's a fun fact. So you know the phrase, it's a doozy?
Uh-huh.
Okay, it was created because the luxury brand, the Duesenberg, it was a luxury automobile known for being over-the-top style. So people would say, it's a doozy.
I think sometimes that gets a little bit twisted. When things don't work properly, it's a doozy. They
and that may be consistent with that brand as well.
Hey, there you go. All right. The first engine, the first car that was powered by an engine was in Mannheim, Germany, by Carl Benz in 1885. Between 1888 and 1883, they sold a whopping 25 units, where we're up to about 16 million a year now in the United States. Much has changed in 120 years. Of course, Brad will tell you that. Now, when a car is designed, it takes hundreds of hours to build, millions of hours to test, to make sure it's safe and efficient. But I'm not the right person to tell you about engineering of some of the modern cars and the modern marvels. So we're joined by Mike Mihalik from Dodge. He is the Durango engineer on the Durango team. Mike, welcome to Test Miles. There's something I've always wanted to know. How many of those Durangos did you crash into a wall before you had safety tested them?
Well, Nick, we crash into more than just walls. We probably throw 30 or so in just front-end collisions to get the airbags calibrated right and to see how they react at various speeds. We also do side pole tests that simulate the car, say, hitting a tree or a pole at high speeds. And because drivers are various sizes, we test what's called a fifth female, which is a small female dummy, and a 50th percentile male, which is an average dummy. We also test some of the corner cases with the larger dummies. And we hit the back end of the car for the safety on the rear end. So there's a whole gamut of tests that we run. We do roof crush to simulate rollover protection. For a totally new vehicle, there's literally 100 tests that we'll run that get into safety.
Isn't for you as an engineer, Mike, it's probably not as painful as it is for the designers to watch those cars going into the wall, but does it hurt a little time every time you see a beautiful Durango crushed against a wall?
It does. These are brand spanking new cars, and I tell you, I've witnessed a few of the impacts, and you see it on film, and we've analyzed the slow motion video so much. But when you're there physically and you see this, 4,000 or 5,000 pound car slam into the wall, the sound it makes is really just tremendous, because you're taking all that energy and you're basically converting the kinetic energy into mechanical energy, and you're bending the steel and you're crushing the steel, and all of that is absorbing the collision damage. So you're kind of translating what is physical motion into the energy in the steel, ripping the steel apart, bending the steel. It's all pretty fascinating.
I'll tell you, it's a painful thing for me to watch those cars go into the wall, but I'm glad you do it and you make them safe. So let's talk a little bit more about the Durango. One of the first vehicles engineered with an 8-speed transmission. Now, normally, 5-6-speed transmission is what you'd get in an SUV of the size of the Durango. So why did you guys go with 8?
Well, we've got a common 8-speed that's for this class of, we call it a north-south engine. So we run similar designs of our transmissions throughout our portfolio of engines. So this transmission's in the Grand Cherokee, it's in the Durango, it's in the Ram truck, and it's designed really for the powertrains that are in these vehicles, the Pentastar 6-cylinder, the Hemi V8. And that 8-speed transmission is there because what we want to do is really optimize performance and fuel economy. So if you give me more gears, then I can get you into the better torque band during initial acceleration, and I can get you into the fuel economy area a lot quicker and more efficiently with 8 speeds.
And you've clearly done that with the Durango. When you start on this vehicle, so we know the Durango and the Grand Cherokee, the Jeep Grand Cherokee, you started with the ML platform from Mercedes in the current generation. What do you start with? You start with this platform, and then you choose what brakes you want. Where do you begin your design, or does it start with a visual and then you have to fill in everything inside?
You go both ways. So on the Durango, it was meant to be a 3-row. So what we'll do is we'll look at what's the optimum package for first, second, third row. So we have these standard dummies that we put into the designs, and we try to get the knee room right. We try to get the headroom right. Then we look at the cargo space, and we package all that in. So what you'd start with really is the inside package. So all of the humans fit the car correctly, and then you package the engine compartment, because we've got all of the mechanical bits that go into the front, which are pretty complicated these days, plus the impact strategy. So the engine compartment not only has to have space for the engine and its powertrain systems, but it has to have space to crush so that you can absorb all that energy. So you start with these big chunks, and then the studio, meanwhile, is out there sketching. So they're sketching ideas. They're trying to get something that really pulls at your emotions and is really sexy and beautiful. And we balance that. So as engineering, we work with the studio really close, and we try to give them as much leeway as possible to get the most beautiful car. But then we have to rein them back in when they say, hey, you just cut my head off, or hey, the guy can't see out the windows, people. Come on, give me a little more space.
Right.
So it's a very iterative process.
I know it's pretty cruel, but we sometimes like to call engineers dream killers, because we have great visions. Designers have great visions of cars, and engineers say, you can't do that. It's not possible. It's not physically possible. When you looked at... Go on.
I was going to say, like, the wheels, right? The wheels kill me all the time. They put these 24-inch wheels with the little rubber bands on them. I think, guys, you can't work with that.
Right, and it's probably very uncomfortable. Let's talk about the actual design process. When you did the Durango, how much of this is done on a CAD and how much is it actually done in a clay studio?
Well, the outside is rendered. So when you're talking strictly the studio, they start with a bunch of renderings, really in the traditional way they've been doing for a long time, with almost an airbrushed look, but it's all in the computer. They'll do hard sketches with pencils and paper, and then they'll start with 3/8 scale clays, which we also can put in our 3/8 scale wind tunnels to do various testing, and then they'll start doing full-size clays. So when you do the outside of the car, they do render it to get quick iterations, but we always put the designs in clay, because you'll find if you don't get it in clay and walk around, you will find something that looks good in a computer but looks ungainly in clay.
Well, now we know more about engineering, and I could spend another hour talking to you about how you put these cars together. Thank you for joining us on Test Miles this morning. We're coming up to the CBS News here, but when we return, there's a big event happening in town on Tuesday called Drive Revolution, and we're going to find out all about that. Plus, we have the bigwigs of the automotive press coming in to tell us what the hot stories are of the week. You're listening to Test Miles on KXL. I'm Nick Miles.
Throw it in neutral and coast in with testmiles.com. Favorite us, tweet us, friend us, love us, all at testmiles.com.
Live from our studios in downtown Portland, Sunday morning, America's Car Radio Show. We'd like to thank you for being part of the Car Nation. For more fun facts about cars, go to our Facebook page, Test Miles ENT.
Here's a fun fact to impress your friends with. The 1 millionth Mustang was produced on February 23rd, 1966.
Were you there, Brad? No, you weren't. He's shaking his head. The Northwest Automotive Press Association is a group of automotive media in our region, and every year they put on a number of signature events. One of those events is a competition called Drive Revolution. And here to explain the event, and is the chairperson of the event, Bengt Halverson. Bengt, what is Drive Revolution?
Hello. Well, Drive Revolution is an event that essentially rounds up all of the green vehicles on the market. And by green vehicles, we mean vehicles that make some sort of revolutionary step toward reducing carbon emissions. And so we are, for the third year of this event, we're kind of taking a step in a direction of vehicles that can provide some sort of mode in which they have zero tailpipe emissions. We're still keeping the event and the competition open to diesel vehicles and maybe even natural gas vehicles, although moving forward, we're acknowledging that the way that emissions are addressed in the U.S., we're looking for a zero tailpipe emissions mode, a mode where if you're in slow-moving stop-and-go traffic in a dense city, that you can be really clean in your driving. And
so diesel putting ammonia spritzers in cars doesn't really qualify?
It doesn't really qualify. It takes out some of the particulate matter, but
it's not as clean as you'd like to see.
It's not as clean as you'd like to see. Exactly.
So when does the event happen? Where is it? And how can the public see some of it?
Well, we are going to be down on First Avenue next to the PGE headquarters and World Trade Center in Portland on all day Tuesday. And this is a media event, meaning that
you can look from afar, but you can't touch or taste.
you can watch us, but no touching on Tuesday. We are general and tech media people looking to get up close with some of these technologies, drive the vehicles, and better communicate about the vehicles and the issues out to you, the public. And this year, our event coincides with a major electric car plug-in conference called EV Roadmap.
And that happens later in the week. That's a Wednesday on, right?
Yeah, EV Roadmap happens at the same venue on Wednesday and Thursday of this next week, and it brings together, I don't think I'm exaggerating here, 200 or 300 policymakers, state officials, officials from other foreign governments I know are attending.
And these are the people that are going to be deciding how electric and different fueled vehicles change their environments, their countries, their states, their cities. That's
right. And R&D officials from the automakers, they're having essentially what amounts to a big powwow on, we've put electric cars out there. The early adopters have bought them. They're plugging in. They're enjoying them. Where do we go from here? How do we make electric cars more exciting for the general audience and for, people who enjoy driving? And so that's going to be one of the big topics this year. Another one of the big topics this year is going to be, which I'm helping lead a panel on Wednesday about how do we foster a used market for electric cars too, the same way that, a luxury car brand would build a reputation and mystique. How do you make it so that the 2, 3, 4-year-old electric cars that are coming in from lease, that people actually do want to lease those?
And I know the Nissan Leaf has been hot in the secondhand market or the gently used market.
Right now, the market's getting pounded, and used Leafs are far cheaper and undervalued than they should be. But part of the discussion is going to be, how do you assure people that the batteries in an electric car are going to last the 8 to 10 years that they're supposed to, and that they won't brick in a year or two like the batteries in our phones.
Right, and then you have to buy another one for $5,000.
Yeah, and the truth is they're automotive grade. They have been engineered to last years. They're a different kind of battery altogether.
When you've solved these problems, can you solve why my battery runs down so fast in my phone now? Because that would be nice.
I wish. I mean, I would say that the personal electronics industry does have some lessons to learn, going back the other way from where we've gone in automotive grade cells.
One of the things I think is most impressive about this event is the number of cars you have, which are pretty out of this world. So, I mean, there's 2 at the top of the list that are like big jaw droppers.
Yeah, we've got some, I might even call them poster cars here. They're the cars that are true head turners. They're just, technology mind-boggling technology vehicles. One of them is the BMW i8. There aren't very many out on the streets yet. It's supposedly been out for most of a year, but you don't see them at all. This is the one with scissor doors and but just a very complex powertrain that combines plugging in with hybrid, and yet it's a very fast sports car at the same time.
Right.
Think DeLorean meets something far geekier.
I have to tell you, there's two things wrong with that car after test driving it. I don't own one. I can't afford one. Those are the two big things that are wrong with it. I was at Lime Rock Park yesterday in Connecticut, and their BMW race team were there. They had a bright yellow one with satin blue wheels. And although every American there thought it was really beautiful, I will tell you, every German BMW executive was turning and tossing and sweating over the color of that car. It's definitely not a BMW color.
Because if you have any background with German cars, you know that it has to be gray,
50 Shades of
and
Grey
more gray.
was written about German cars.
Yeah. One other car that we're going to have at Drive Revolution that, you probably have never seen one before. There are only 2 or 3 in the country right now, as far as I know, that haven't been put into a very limited fleet test situation, is the Toyota Mirai, and that's a fuel cell car. And the idea with the Mirai is that once you refuel it with hydrogen, it goes quietly, just like an electric car, and you could drive for hundreds of miles. We're seeing some hiccups with refueling on the West Coast right now with hydrogen, though. And so even in this small test situation, there are some questions of, could you extend this infrastructure nationally? And it looks like hard going. But still, the Mirai shows what we could do with fuel cell technology in the future. It's really exciting.
Remove the infrastructure problem with hydrogen. And everybody agrees that it's probably the best fuel out there. Remove the infrastructure, and you've got a great fuel. But when you consider the infrastructure issues, it's in question about whether this will actually happen.
Unless the government gets behind whatever method of power, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Hydrogen's just amazing.
So if hydrogen
emissions.
doesn't get the dollars and the money, there's not going to be an infrastructure.
Even if it does,
it's already
a lot of dollars and a lot of money.
It's already had a lot of dollars and a lot of money.
But I think most everybody is behind the electric system. We've got the green highway. We've got all the, down by.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's limited. We could have this debate all week. It's very limited. It's very limited. You're right, Brad. It is.
Another thing we've got at Drive Revolution, we've got a lot of just stealth green cars that are like shockingly efficient. Or zero tailpipe emissions, and yet you might never know. Like we'll have $114,000 car, a Mercedes-Benz S-Class plug-in hybrid at our event. People could get in and ride in the car, and if they have the music cranked up or they aren't thinking about it, it feels probably just like any other S-Class, and yet you're going in all electric mode. You're not burning a drop of gasoline as long as it's driven gently enough.
Watch your local TV station, read your local newspapers and blogs, because you will find out about all these cars that are at Drive Revolution. It happens on Tuesday at the World Trade Center. You can look, but you can't touch. You can come and peer and take some pictures of the new i8, the new Toyota, and several other cars there. Last year's winners. Do you remember what they were of the competition?
I'm going to get them confused with the previous year's winners. Yeah, the Fiat 500e has been one of our top
the 500e was the overall
far.
Winner. Oh, the VW Golf, the electric Golf. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was the winner last year. So, what's that? Yeah, but I think the overall winner was there was 5 winners in one in each category, and then an overall winner as well.
So one of the questions going to be asked, and I've been asked when I talked about this, Tesla isn't going to be there because they just do things differently, right?
Yes, Tesla doesn't like their cars being in competitions. They don't necessarily attend conferences. They go about every aspect of their business differently.
They're like child athletes, aren't they? Very difficult to deal with. Very good, but very difficult to deal with. All right, Banks, thank you so much. Bank, you can read his stuff on the Car Connection, on Motor...
On Green Car Reports,
Green
too.
Car Reports, on Motor Authority. He is probably one of the country's leading writers, especially in green car and alternative energy and policy. Thank you for being in the studio. Coming up next, we're going to talk to two of our region's premier automotive writers about what got their attention in the automotive news this week. You're listening to Test Miles and FM News 101 KXL. I'm Nick Miles.
It's Test Miles on FM News 101.